Most of us know the company 23andMe, the genetics research company. And I bring them up first because they got their start. They were just like you, a small business searching for funding, and they got their start with SBIR funding from NIH. So we're going to talk today about what it takes to get a proposal through and go through some of the details about the SBIR program. To orient us a little bit, my name is Kim Mozingo. I'm the Vice President of Federal Programs for TEDCO, and TEDCO exists to identify, invest in, and help grow technology companies. We have a number of programs that do that. Some of the ones that are particularly important for this group are our market research databases and, of course, our SBIR Proposal Lab, which is what we're talking about today. We also have investments for companies. We do work to fund Maryland companies that are in pre-seed through early stage venture capital between $100,000 and $1.5 million. And our federal programs, which is what the Proposal Lab falls under, exist to help Maryland businesses connect with federal labs for research and development, for growing your company in other ways, testing your products and services, and a lot of other opportunities that the federal labs offer to businesses. So far, in our proposal lab, we've helped companies bring in $28 million in SBIR or STTR funding. We work with 90 federal labs across the state and actually labs in other states as well. And so far, we've helped about 187 companies. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. So my background has been in tech transfer and commercialization for a couple of decades now. And the reason you see the Air Force Thunderbirds there is because that is my background as well. While I was never a Thunderbird pilot, I did serve in the Air Force. Both of my girls are Air Force, and my son-in-law is a Thunderbird pilot. So some of the work the DoD does is particularly important to me. So TEDCO does offer 4 separate SBIR programs, this proposal lab that we're going to talk specifically about today. We also offer technical and business assistance. So that's TABA support that you can apply for with your SBIR program. Different federal agencies offer additional funding on top of your SBIR award. So that's something you want to be thinking about and be aware of as well. And that is to support the growth of the business more so than the R&D efforts. We also have funding from the state of Maryland for the Maryland Technical Assistance Program. This is a program that will help companies that are searching for SBIR opportunities outside of NSF. So the Proposal Lab focuses on NSF. This program can support companies. It's not set up yet, but when it is, it will support companies searching for other opportunities. And we will also be running Maryland's state matching program to fund businesses with additional support. For this program, we have funding from the Small Business Administration. We were fortunate, along with 48 other states, to be selected for funding this year again. So our Proposal Lab team includes TEDCO, the OST Global Solutions GovCon Incubator, and Alessia Smotrova is here today with us. Just to give you a little bit of background of why this incubator is part of our program, because Alessia's company has helped their businesses bring in about $26 billion in federal funding. They are Proposal Lab experts, and we're thrilled to have them on our team. We also support the Maryland Small Business Development Center, so they bring expertise to the team as well. Not only can they help you with all of the registrations that need to be done, and we will talk about that later on today, they can also help you with many other things, kind of from soup to nuts, from the beginning of your company through merger and acquisition. They've got a tremendous team of experts available, and they are funded in part by the SBA, so most of their services are free or low cost. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the 11 agencies that offer SBIR and STTR funding. The agencies that are in white here offer both SBIR and STTR funding, and the agencies in black only offer SBIR funding. And not to get into too many technical details, but if an agency has $1 billion or more In R&D funding, they will offer the STTR program. And to give you an idea of the complexity of this, while we talk about 11 agencies, there are actually many more sub-agencies or departments within those agencies. For example, the Department of Defense, of course, has who we know, the Army, Navy, and Air Force, and all the other sub-departments as well. Health and Human Services includes NIH, the FDA, CDC, and ACL. And for us, we're going to focus on NSF. So each agency releases their awards or announces their awards at different times throughout the year. And the purpose of this timeline really isn't to tell you, oh, this is specifically when, on January 1st, a release will come out. A release just means they'll tell you what they're looking for, what the agency is looking for. This is just to give you an idea that these agencies are open at different times. They do have open and close dates when they will accept proposals, and the ones that have black in pre-release means that that's when you can speak to that agency about their proposal. They open for submissions at different times throughout the year, and the Department of Energy in particular does have pre-release topics, so they will allow you to speak to them throughout the life of their proposal open period. They're a little bit different than other agencies in that. And you'll notice that NSF and the HHS, or Health and Human Services Omnibus, are open all year long. So you can essentially submit your proposal at any time of year. NSF does have close dates, so they'll open for a period of time, then they'll close. They open right up the next day. When we talk about budgets, I mentioned earlier that the STTR program, which I will talk about in more detail, is for agencies that have budgets over $1 billion, and you can see DoD is one of the largest funders. HHS is shown here in light gray, meaning that they have contracts, or they have grants and not contracts. So we're going to talk about that for a minute. There is a big difference in the way contracts and grants work. Agencies that have offer contracts are very specific, usually very topic specific. They will tell you exactly what the problem is that they have and that they want you to solve. This is a procurement, so it is a contract. That means that you will do the work on the contract if you're selected, and then you get reimbursed for that work when you finish. You are expected to produce. It is a binding agreement, and you can see the agencies that offer contracts. For granting agencies, especially NSF, NSF is a PI initiated, so PI is the principal investigator. You suggest the topic to them. They have a variety of areas that they're interested in, but you suggest the topic. And for NSF in particular, you'll submit a pitch about your topic, and if you're selected, then you can submit a proposal. This is there's a lot more flexibility in a contract, and with NSF, I believe you can request up to 75% of the funding early. So right away, you can request that funding right away, then do your work, and at the end of the period, you can request the other 25%. And this is really looking for your best efforts in research. So to quickly go over the program. So the program is administered by the Small Business Administration, but each agency runs their program in their own way. However, this is a good overview of what the program looks like. There are essentially 3 phases. Phase 1 is really to create your proof of concept for your innovation, and it's usually 6 to 12 months. And this year with NSF raising their award amount, they go up to $305,000. In phase 2 is kind of when you're doing prototype development. So you continue your research efforts. The time frame is 24 months, and the awards are up to $1.8 million. Now, you cannot, in general, apply for a phase 2 without having completed a phase 1 first, although I caveat that because there are opportunities for other types of funding. Agencies are getting very creative for later stage technology. And phase 3 is when you have hit that commercialization mark. So no funding comes from the SBIR program. This is no longer R&D funding. This is when companies are looking for commercialization, they're looking for customers, and their funding comes from other sources. I said we would talk about the difference between SBIR and STTR. SBIR does allow partnering. Well, both of them allow partnering. With STTR, you are required to partner with a nonprofit research institution. That is usually a university. It doesn't have to be, but it is usually a university. For SBIR, your principal investigator, the person that's going to be primarily responsible for the work, and the point of contact on the grant or contract, needs to be primarily employed with a small business. That means greater than 50% of their time, they need to be employed by you. If you are applying for an STTR, the PI can be employed by that research partner. For the work requirements, and you need to be careful about this, the agencies interpret this in different ways, but for SBIR, you can contract out up to a certain percent. So 33% in phase 1 and 50%. That means you need to do the bulk of the work, but you can contract out other pieces of work to other organizations, or you can get an SBIR and work with a research institution. If you are applying for an STTR, you must do 40% of the work. The other 60%, 30% has to go to the research institution. The other 60% or 30% can go to either the small business, another partner. I'm sorry, I keep doing that. Or to the small business, or to the research institution or another partner. So the program sizes are very different, and that is based on what we talked about before, the funding that's available, the research and development funding that's available through each agency. If you are VC owned, there are some considerations. It may be allowable with an STTR. It is not allowed with an, it's not allowed with an STTR. It may be allowed with an SBIR. And again, there are 6 agencies that participate in the STTR program because of their research budgets, and 11 agencies that participate with SBIR. So I am really having a problem with the slides today. This is referred to, SBIR and STTR are referred to as America's Seed Fund. In 2022, there was $4.3 billion in grants and contracts let to companies. NSF funds up to $200 million a year. They do about 400 grants a year. And the purposes are to stimulate technological innovation, and they use small businesses to meet their R&D needs. So each agency has a mission. They have different things they're trying to accomplish, and this program helps them accomplish those things with the support of small businesses. The reason it exists too is to really drive innovation from the commercial sector. So we know that small businesses like yours are very innovative, and the government wants to help foster that. They also want to foster technology transfer. So there are opportunities, again, to work with research institutions. There are opportunities to license technology from a lab and further develop that. There are a lot of opportunities to work with federal labs while you're working on your SBIR award. And these awards, I mentioned the amount. NSF is up to $305,000 for a phase 1. This is similar to an angel investment. But it's important to note that the United States government does not take any ownership of your company. They don't take any equity. You don't have to repay the money, and you do own your IP. So why do we focus on NSF? Well, first of all, it's a grant and not a contract. And we already talked about the benefits of that, but you can request a good portion of that funding up front. You don't have to have it in the bank and then get reimbursed for it. You initiate the approach rather than the agency saying, this is our problem that we want you to propose to solve. It is very much less specific, focused on a topic, and versus if it's a contract, they're highly focused. They tell you what they want you to do, and you propose to that. It's more of assistance than procurement. So it's important to understand with agencies like the Department of Defense, who does contracts and not grants, there is opportunity for them to actually buy your product. So whatever you're selling, they may end up buying, or whatever you're building with your phase one, the government, the Department of Defense may end up buying. NSF will not buy your solution, no matter what you're building. They're not interested. That's not why they exist. This is, of course, more flexible. You get that upfront payment. For NSF, your solution needs to support a public purpose. And this is really your best efforts in research as opposed to delivering on a contract. The topics are broad, and importantly, with NSF, or really with any agency, if you get a phase one, you can parlay that into a phase two at another agency as well. In addition, once you get a phase one or phase two, that's a competition. So you are eligible for, if you're building a solution that works for an agency and they want to buy that solution, they can get to you very easily because you've competed and been selected for award. So that's a little bit trickier. The agency has to initiate that. You don't. But if you're doing your customer discovery with an agency, you'll know who to go to speak about that. And again, NSF has the largest awards of any of the phase one agencies. Yes, phase one. So, but NSF is a little bit different than other agencies in that they are looking for innovation. They want to know that you're proposing something that is novel, that hasn't been done before. There's an element of risk in what you're doing, and it's innovative. Not innovative because you're putting a couple of pieces together from different areas and saying this is a new thing. That's not what they're looking for. You have to, when you are writing any proposal, really, don't leave it up to the imagination of the reviewers, the people that are going to look at your proposal, to understand what the innovation is. You need to call that out very, very, very clearly. And the definition of innovation on this screen is one that comes directly from NSF. So when I said NSF is PI driven, they do have topic areas, but those topic areas are very broad. And even if you think you belong in one topic area, they think you belong in another, it's not an issue. But you can go look at those topic areas and see what NSF is interested in. You should be doing research on the agency that you intend to apply for anyway, so you'll understand what their interests are today and what their interests are intended to be in the future. This is just one example of advanced manufacturing and all the subtopics they have available. In order to receive SBIR funding, this is not just eligibility for our lab, this is eligibility to receive SBIR funding. The business must be primarily US owned and controlled, whether you're a US citizen or a permanent resident. You have to have under 500 people. That's the qualification for being a small business. And I think most of us on this call are well under that. The research needs to be done in the United States. So you're going to get funding from the US government. They want the research done in the United States. It has to be R&D focused, and there are investor ownership considerations if you're looking at STTR, and even if you're looking at SBIR. For NSF, can you apply if you you've already developed a solution? No, you cannot. NSF is funding research and development. So they're not going to retroactively pay you, and they're not going to pay you. The government will never pay you twice for the same body of work. It's okay if you have done, and you should have done, related work. We'll talk about that in a minute. But if you've already built a product, they're not going to fund you for that. They are hoping that your research will lead to a commercial product. That, of course, within
Check is can you guys hear me? We lost Kim.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I
but
can, yeah.
not enough.
Oh, Kim, we just
Uh,
lost you
please.
for a little bit. So like about a minute of what you were saying was gone.
Okay, can you hear
You
me
want to
now?
go back to the previous slide? Yeah, we can
Oh,
hear you now. Mhm.
okay. Sorry about that. Again, it does have to be a new idea. If you've already developed research, you have a final product, they're not going to pay you retroactively for that. So, and the PI needs to be, that will be the single point of contact on the research. They do have to have credibility, but I was saying they do not have to be a PhD. There's no requirement for that, but they do have to have experience, demonstrable experience in the area that you're proposing. And it has to be credible. They need to be primarily employed by the small business if you're applying for SBIR. If you're applying for STTR, they can be employed at the research institution or the university that you're working with. So for our purposes, for the proposal lab, in order to qualify, you must be a for-profit small business. So nonprofits are not eligible for SBIR funding. It is the Small Business Innovation Research Fund. So all the funding will always go to a small business. You have to be properly registered in the state of Maryland. So you can form your company in Delaware, as many companies do. But you need to be authorized to work in Maryland and paying your Maryland taxes. We do give priority. Our funding from the SBA is specifically to support women-owned small businesses, small disadvantaged businesses as defined by the SBA, and rural Maryland small businesses. So most of the state of Maryland, I think more than 75% is rural, and we try to give consideration to those businesses. We also consider veteran-owned small businesses, and we will consider other very small businesses. So we have some funding from the Department of Treasury that defines very small businesses for us, and that is a small business with 20 or fewer employees. So at this point, I am going to turn everything over to Alessia Smotrova to talk about our proposal lab that we have been running since 2018 very successfully. So go ahead, Alessia.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kim, and that was a great overview. Let me tell you about the lab. So a lab is an interesting adventure that we all set on together. And we basically are looking to bring in a cohort of talented researchers and developers, entrepreneurs who are trying to get this funding, and we're here to help you get this funding. And this lab has two parts. The first part, we're going to actually accept more people into the lab that we normally do, because this year we are actually doing it in two parts. Prior to that, we were doing it in one part. But now we're doing two parts. And the first part is going to really focus on what are you going to propose? What is your concept? How do you actually create a pitch to the NSF and capture the brilliance of whatever that you're trying to propose? What is it that is going to be innovative about it? What is going to be the heart of your research? So sort of figuring that out in advance, learning about that, doing some market analysis, and drafting your pitch and getting it reviewed. And then we're going to review those pitches, and we're going to tell you right away, hey, you know, NSF may have not agreed with you, but that's a good pitch, and we're going to work with you and continue working with you. Or maybe this is not the right time. You have some homework to do, and we're going to give you that homework and hope that you come back to the lab the following year with that homework done so that you're ready to go ahead and work on your proposal. Now, some of you are going to make it into lab part 2, and that's when we're really going to work very closely with you to get your proposal done. We're going to start with the outline. We're going to help you formulate plans for each of the sections to make sure they're compliant, That's the magic word in government proposals, is responsive to every single little requirement that they have. And we're going to show you how to respond to these requirements to be really successful. And one of the most valuable parts of this lab is we're going to run the reviews. So TEDCO has a group of experts. They're called network advisors. And they're people who have built companies, who have launched big enterprises, that now what they're doing is they're giving back to the community. And TEDCO hires them to help in a variety of ways, where they can be loaned executives, for example, placed with the companies to help companies and everything else. For our lab, these people are going to be the reviewers. They're tough, but they're really fair, and they're really good working with your proposals and giving you excellent feedback on how to make your proposal better. So initially, those people are going to be helping with your pitch reviews, but eventually they're going to be looking at your proposals. And what we're going to run is a pink team. Pink team is the review of the first draft, and the red team, which is a review of your 90% customer ready draft. And then we're going to walk you through proposal preparation for submission and the submission process. And I will tell you something. We have had a really, really high win rate for people who are participating in our lab. We've literally gotten to as high as 2.5 times the national win rate for the companies who bid. And for women-owned, it was 5.8 times higher than the national win rate. And the average national win rate hovers usually around 15%. So this process really works. It's tried and true. We have a lot of alumni from this lab coming out of this lab who have achieved amazing successes. Like, we were talking to one of our alumni the other day, and her company grew 1,700% after winning her phase 1 award. 1,700%. So people are achieving tremendous success with that. So Kim, next slide, please. So let me walk you through very detailed sort of curriculum for what the lab is going to teach you to set expectations. And by the way, all of these are virtual, so you can participate from wherever you are, but all of these are mandatory. So when we accept you into the lab, you need to make the commitment. So whatever you have on your schedule, you have to clear that off your schedule and be there fully present, because it's a really intensive program. That's the downside, right? Because we know how busy you are. The upside is you're going to acquire skills that are going to change your trajectory as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, because you're going to understand how to do business development, how to build concepts, how to turn them into viable products and or services, and how to pitch your solutions, how to propose your solutions, how to respond to government proposals. So like, all of these skills are going to stay with you for life, not just for that one proposal you're going to submit with us together in a lab. So the first part is going to be, and I think that we skipped a slide. There should be a slide before that that actually talks about, workshop 1. Thank you. So workshop 1 is going to kick off the lab. That's going to be on the 15th of January. And we're going to do a customer discovery business model. Some of you may have been through what's called an I-Corp, which is a series of workshops, a program actually that's run by the Maryland University, NSF, and other entities. It essentially teaches you to invent something that people truly need, right? To bring a product that's truly needed in the market, to create your value proposition, to create your business model around that. And we're going to cover that anyways in the lab to make sure that everybody is on a level playing field. We're going to make sure that you get to know your cohort so you can network with your colleagues. And we're going to give you the overview of the program. We're going to teach you how to win an NSF grant and what matters. We're going to walk you through the outline, because we're going to have an outline ready for you. You will not have to decipher what the NSF wants. We're going to tell you what they want exactly in what format. So that is going to give you a really good guidance on what to do. We're going to talk about business model development, and we're going to talk through expected deliverables and assignments prior to the next workshop. So, and what we're going to then dive in workshop 2 into is how to present research and development correctly to the NSF. It is not an easy kind of feat. So it's actually a specific formula that they're looking for, and we found that following that formula actually gets you to answer the questions in the mind of the reviewers at NSF. And specifically, how do you satisfy high risk requirements? You don't want the NSF try to read into it. You want to be very explicit in how you present that information. We're going to teach you how to do that. We are going to talk about the framework for innovation, which is subject to R and the D in the R&D, and properly articulating the pitch based on that. And we're going to work with you through the hands-on pitch development to prepare you for the pitch review. Next slide, please. So once we do the pitch review, we're going to give you the outcomes. We're going to tell you, are you going to make it into part 2 or not? We're going to sit down with you. If you're not making it into part 2, we're going to give you a to-do list. This is an action item list. We're going to say, look, go through this list, come back to us next year to get into the next year's lab. So hopefully you're going to be really ready to hit it hard and do it the next time. Now, for those of you who make it into part 2, Kim, do you want to add something?
Let me just add that our expectation is that you will have had time to submit your pitch to NSF and gotten feedback from NSF. Getting feedback that says this isn't quite right is okay. And even if you don't hear back from NSF, we'll be able to make determinations of who is ready for part 2, as Alessia said.
Yeah, so we are trying to time the part 1 and part 2 so that you're able to have a couple of pitch submissions to NSF, because they have, like, right around that time frame, they have the first window that closes that allows you to submit a pitch. And then right around that time frame in March, you can turn around and submit another pitch in a new time window. So, but that brings me to a point of, if you commit to this lab, you're going to have to make all the deadlines in order for you to do that, because there's a lot of really strict deadlines and you're going to have to follow that process. Which is no different from how businesses win proposals. They have a very strict process, and there's not one single deadline at the end that says, okay, this is when the due date is. It is the deadlines, a series of deadlines of what you have to get done in order for you to arrive at that final deadline in style and submit on time. And so that's part of what you're going to learn in the lab, actually, is that discipline of being very structured about developing a proposal document, and you're going to carry that discipline into your business future. So yeah, workshop number 3 is going to kick off our part 2, and that is where we're going to go through the outline content walkthrough, compliance, response planning, and then we're going to talk about the Proposal Lab SharePoint portals, time management, content, expected deliverables, assignments prior to the next workshop. So we're going to really be deep diving into the proposal process. And for workshop 4, we're going to teach you, and it's going to come very quickly after the workshop 1, we're going to teach you how to brainstorm and how to speed write. We're going to use AI very heavily. We're going to teach you how to use AI correctly. Because lots of people use it incorrectly, and as a result, they get substandard kind of outputs. We're going to talk to you about how to use it correctly, how to work with your team, how to develop really good content. We're going to talk about the psychology of writing, the correct writing process with AI, without AI, right? So like that just adds to our tool set, but it doesn't replace a really good, solid approach to writing. We're gonna talk about the expected deliverables and assignments prior to the next workshop. Next slide, please. So then you're gonna have time to write. You're gonna have some room to write. Not until the 16th of April will we have the workshop number 5, which is the project plan and commercialization. Those are some of the harder sections that everybody struggles with. And as you will have taken a crack at those, as you have gotten your draft close to done. We're going to actually go and deep dive into those sections to help you hone on those specific materials and do some group brainstorming, do some individual brainstorming. We're going to talk about what is expected in commercialization sections, in project plans. We're going to give you some templates for those graphics, and we're going to talk about getting ready for the pink team pens down. So that's the review that we're talking about. Thank you. So then we have the pink team review, and you're going to submit your proposals, and we're going to have 2 reviewers each. You're going to be matched with somebody who is close to being an expert in your topic or an expert in your topic, and people with proposal expertise. And for about 1 week, we're going to give your reviewers time to look at your proposal. And then the reviewers are going to give a group feedback to the whole cohort on what we're seeing with everyone's proposals. You get to learn from sort of the general feedback on how the cohort did, as well as individual meetings where people will dive into your specific proposal, your content, and the quality. And you're going to get specific recommendations for improvement. The standard for pink team is about 60% done, and it is compliance responsive to everything. Workshop number 6 is going to be on your budget proposal and on how to do the graphics, because your proposals are always better with the graphics. We're going to give you templates for graphics. We're going to actually show you what graphics look like. We're going to show you how to work with them and talk about the principles of design and give you more homework, right? So it's going to be some dry information in this section where you're going to be doing the budgets and the numbers, but also some creative and fun stuff. Workshop number 7 is going to be on the 21st of May. We're going to talk about editing and desktop publishing your documents so that they're professional looking and you don't have typos invalidating all of the brilliance that you poured into your proposal and or poor grammar and things like that. We're going to go through formatting documents in Word. We're going to go through how to prepare your proposals, and then we're going to prepare for the red team pens down. And so red team, that's our final review of the proposal that you're going to get from the experts. You're going to get 3 reviewers each proposal matched to your topic. And this review is going to be for about a week and a half. And again, you're going to get group and individual feedback. And they're going to look at everything, at your technical narrative, at your budget, at your see curriculum vitae, resumes, right? Letters of support you're going to have to generate. And the reviewers are going to give you recommendations for improvement. And we're going to expect that you'll be about 90% NSF submission ready with within 10% of the page count, compliant, compelling, and so on and so forth. We're going to give you more details about that as we work through the lab. And for workshop number 8, we're going to be there with you getting your proposal finalized. So we're going to check on the status. We're going to catch the last issues, load the proposals in the portal, hit the submit button, and submit confirmation planning and process. In between all of these workshops, there's going to be lots of different workshops that we've been putting on for you that are going to enrich your understanding just in a general, like what kind of support entrepreneurs get in Maryland, what kinds of resources are available to you, different topics that are kind of adjacent to being an entrepreneur, like intellectual property, for example. So lots of different areas of knowledge that you're going to get on top of what the curriculum of the standard curriculum of the lab. So now there's some questions to consider. I'm going to actually refer back to Kim to go through those questions. And this is food for thought. This is not something that is not going to prevent you from participating, but this is something that you may want to consider.
Yes, thank you, Alessia. We asked these questions because we found over the past 6 years of doing this that if you have done things like I-Corps, if your team has been through an I-Corps program, you're kind of better prepared to write an NSF proposal. NSF is the kind of founder of the I-Corps program, and this is the program of customer discovery. And it is offered, as Alessia said, through the University of Maryland in College Park. So if you've gone through an I-Corps program, you're better prepared to get started on your proposal. You want to think about what kind of related work your team has done. We talked about the PI not needing to be a PhD, but having the requisite skills and experience to carry out the work. Conflicts of interest. So if you've applied for other funding, for example, if you have funding out to the Department of Energy, if you've submitted a proposal to the DOE, when you apply to the proposal lab, you want to think about how that might be in conflict. As I said, the United States government and our tax dollars don't want to pay someone twice for the same work. And we can help you figure out, what do you do with that? What if you get the DOE award and you submit to NSF? And what if you get the NSF award? How do you manage that? You want to think about any other proposal support that you have or any other awards. You want to understand the peer-reviewed research. So this is important because your PI is supposed to be the expert on this area. So you better know what the current state of the art is, right? If there are any patents that could result from your research, you want to give that some thought. You want to be strategic about how you're applying and when you're applying, and whether or not you have access to the right facilities and equipment to carry out the work. So an answer no to that doesn't mean that you shouldn't apply. It means that we need to know because we might need to be able to, work with you to help you connect. For example, there are resources in federal labs that you may need access to. And have you thought about how you'll actually commercialize this technology? How are you going to get it from point A to point B? If you're doing something that requires reimbursement approval, for example, you want to think about that early enough on that you can answer those questions and address that in your proposal. As Alessia said, our expectation is if you're applying to the lab and we're bringing you in, we expect that you are 100% committed to this, and short of a really good personal reason, illness, something like that, there's no reason to miss a lab because we provide you with all the dates well enough in advance that you should be able to manage your calendar. We do usually have a waiting list, and we don't like to have people on the waiting list who might be more committed, or it might be a better time, a more appropriate time for them than for you. We need you to keep up with your assignments all the time because we keep the cohort on pace. We want everyone to be on the same page. This helps us, correct problems early that come up, and it keeps the stress level down for you and for everyone else in the cohort. So this is your schedule. This is your time. I didn't mention earlier, but it usually takes about 150 hours to write your first phase 1 SBIR proposal. We'll do a lot of that with you through the lab, but we really want you to be able to submit your proposal on time. So we target the end of June, early July as a time frame for NSF. So I didn't realize it was going to do this. So if you are going to apply for any SBIR award, not just NSF, you need to start your registrations early. It can take a long time to get through this process. It's very easy to do. It doesn't take a lot of time to actually submit the application, but it can take a lot of time to hear back and to get your UEI and all those other things that you need when you register in sam.gov. And this is an important note. I think you can request just financial assistance in the process of applying to sam.gov, and you'll see that, you'll recognize that when it comes up. You don't need contract authority because first, that can be a longer process, and second, with NSF, this is a grant, not a contract, and that's something you can go back and change later. You also need to register with the SBA. And the Small Business Development Center, as I mentioned, can help you with all of this. So if you're not already registered with a Small Business Development Center, you want to do that. And literally, if you search for Maryland Small Business Development Center, you will find the website and the registration site. So you need to get that done as well. And you need to register in research.gov. in order to be able to submit your proposal to NSF. That's where you'll actually do the submission. All these other registrations are necessary as well. So don't just think you can go to research.gov and register, because you've got to have registration in SAM first. So start this early. If you think you're going to be applying for any SBIR funding, just get it started. And yes, work with the SBDC to help you. So you can apply for our proposal lab through the 15th or the 13th, I think, of December this year on our website. You can join us for office hours. We're having several office hours opportunities to talk about the lab, to answer your questions. We have applicants already, and we're getting ready to start interviews for that. So you have a better chance of getting in early because this is kind of first come, first serve. So the best companies that come to us early, we're getting them in the proposal lab. So I don't know if we said before, we're going to take about 40 companies in that first cohort for part one, and we'll narrow that down to probably around 20. If we end up having 30 great companies, we'll figure that out at some point. But the lab fills quickly, and that 13 December cutoff is so that we have enough time to complete any interviews that we need to complete. Once we invite you to the proposal lab, you will need to make a payment, and we'll provide you with a link to be able to do that. But you want to do that kind of quickly to reserve your spot, because we can't hold them open forever. And this is me. I have not yet introduced Julia Deng. Julia Deng is our Director of SBIR programs, and she will be taking over this and all of those other programs that I mentioned earlier today. So thank you, Julia, for being here with us. You want to say hello?
Hi, I'm Julia here. Okay, I'm happy to work with all of you if you have interest our proposal lab. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Julia. And that is all I have today. So we wanted to make sure we left time for your questions. I'm going to stop sharing. I think I'm going to stop sharing. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for us about SBIRs or the lab or anything related?
Yeah, I have a question. So how do we protect the IP as we go through the process? How does TEDCO protect the IP as we go into the process?
Well, we don't protect your IP. You need to protect your IP. So do you not have a patent yet?
We're just trying to understand the process.
Okay. Oh, are you asking about how we protect your information?
Sure.
So as employees of TEDCO, we have kind of an NDA built into our employment agreement because we are a quasi-state organization. So we are very careful with your intellectual property. As a contractor to us, Alessia has the same situation. So they protect your information as well. So you are well protected, and everyone that we work with, all of the network advisors that Alessia mentioned, the people that review your proposals, they also have a kind of NDA agreement built into their agreement with TEDCO. So we do take that seriously, and we do make sure that anything that you're sending to us, whether that's through SharePoint, that's protected. So I'll explain a little bit. SharePoint, we have an individual room, a SharePoint room sort of for your company that we have access to and you have access to, but nobody else has access to.
Oh, and the reviewers will have access to, but they're also under agreements with TEDCO. And with IP, there's also an intent of like this when public disclosure, like being in the lab, is very hard to argue that the intent is to disclose your invention. So this is a very specific format that would prevent that from being considered disclosure.
Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Anybody else?
Hi. I have a question regarding number of hours that we should dedicate to the lab program every week. Specifically, I'm also part of another accelerator called Activate that has its requirements. So I just need to find out whether two are compatible.
So we publish all of the dates like we did today. In every slide that we talked about the workshop, we have the date. That information is also, I believe, in a separate attachment on our website so that you have all the dates in advance. We have workshops, you know, as we noted in the slides, about once a month, roughly. And they are 8-hour workshops, so it's all day long. That's you block your entire day off for this. I can tell you we've been doing this on Wednesdays for years, so Wednesday is kind of my SBIR day.
Thanks.
Yeah, and just to add to that, so workshops are full day. So there's 8 hours that day that you need to dedicate to the workshop. And then there's going to be some 1-hour sessions between those workshops that you will need to be at. And in addition to that, as Kim mentions, about 150 hours to get your proposal done.
Yeah.
And
So
just a follow-up, I assume it's something that starts, let's say, at 9 a.m. and then it goes till 5 p.m.
Correct.
Roughly 5. There are, you know, some workshops have ended early, some workshops have ended a little bit later, just because people have questions, or if we bring in a speaker at 1 o'clock every workshop day. We have a speaker. They could be from NSF, they could be from TEDCO's investment team, just a variety of places. They could be from another agency. We also, as Alessia mentioned, we do these separate seminars because we found that there's 8-hour workshops are just, it's not enough time. And we want you to be able to know things like how to search for other opportunities. For example, just because you're applying to NSF now doesn't mean that some other agency isn't funding similar work. So we want you to know how to go search for other agencies that you might apply to, because they could be your buyers, right?
Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Hi, how are you? This is Paul Skase with SR Fed. Quick question on how far along through the process we need to be. I think you mentioned previously, you talked about you know, whether a company has a patent, that sort of thing. I mean, we as a company, we have an idea for a potential solution. We're absolutely still in the ideating phase. I mean, there's no patent, there's nothing like that. Would you say for a company like that, it makes sense to postpone a year, get things, you know, more ironed out, or like how far along through the process do you think we should be for something like this?
So that's a good question. NSF, are you familiar with technology readiness levels?
I am not.
Okay. Many agencies use what they call technology readiness levels, which is a scale of 1 to 9 that describes where your innovation is on that line. Technology readiness level 1 is kind of, we have an idea. We have a really good idea. You might have some white papers or some published papers, or some research completed. And then it goes up from there all the way through a TRL 9, which is when you reach commercialization. So you fully build out the product. You're at that SBIR phase 3 level where somebody can purchase your solution. So NSF likes to fund technology around a TRL 2 or 3. So whether or not you're ready this year, it's kind of hard to determine, Paul. What you can do is go to NSF's website. So let me see if I can pull that up. I should share this anyways. They do offer some lunchtime seminars to answer questions. I'm trying to find that right now.
Oh, it's great. And I appreciate the candor and transparency on that. Look, because everyone's going to be at a different place, and you never know. Like, am I ready? And everyone wants to be as prepared as possible, right? But the
Yeah.
reality is, you got to pull the trigger at some point, and so when does that happen? So, I that is extremely helpful. So, thank you very much.
Okay. And if you apply and, for the proposal lab, and we look at, because we do ask you questions about that NSF will ask on your pitch, and they don't have to be perfect at all. We're just trying to get an idea of where your company is. That will help us guide you as well. So
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
if you apply, we can review your application and we can get back to you and let you know whether this is a good year for you, or if you should give it another year or so.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Yep. Okay, so I just found their office hours. And I will put those in chat. Any other questions? Does anybody have any questions about being a Maryland company and what that means?
Kim, this is Nagesh from Expedite Infotech. If I'm not late to ask any questions.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, we are Maryland company, and we are SBIR certified company, and we have 2 prime contracts at NSF right now as we speak.
You have two contracts?
2 prime contracts with NSF right now. We are an
Okay.
IT services company, and
Okay.
uh,
But
we are also planning to go for some SBIR, either in the civilian space or DoD space. Our focus is heavy into DoD space, but after listening to this conversation, that triggers something. Hey, there are some opportunities at NSF, right, where we are already having some prime contracts. Having said that, if we want to work with you guys, right, into this lab with all these approaches, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, how many opportunities are there in NSF right now for fiscal year 2025? Any idea? Like SBIR opportunities?
so
Do they post anything?
They award about 400 a year.
yeah, they'll award 400 SBIR and STTR phase 1 and phase 2 awards, right? So that's how many opportunities there are.
Okay.
But you have to be creating something new, right? It can't be something that already exists.
Right.
Yeah, and it needs to be really high risk. There has to be technical risk involved in what you're doing.
And did NSF already post what their technical challenges are on their website?
Do they post what their no, they post what their topic areas are.
They also post their strategic goals, right? In general, like what are the
Yeah.
areas that they generally consider as a challenge in the society that they address. So it has to be fitting within those general areas. But then what Kim was saying is they post the topics.
Topics. Yeah. I mean, when I say challenge,
there are subtopics, so you have to fit within those. And they're very broad. There are very few exceptions to those.
Yeah, and even if they have they don't have your specific area listed, that doesn't mean they won't entertain your proposal, right? Or your pitch. They'll look at your pitch.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
So,
Thank
and
you.
on their website is America's Seed Fund. They're pretty clear about what they're looking for, their eligibility. So I'll send a link.
Yeah,
Okay.
one thing we didn't mention as far as participation, there is a fee to participate. If you're accepted into the lab, there is $500 fee for there's $250 fee for the phase 1. If you're accepted into phase 2, there's a $500 fee. So it's $750 total.
Okay.
because this lab is actually funded in part by the Small Business Administration, in part by TEDCO, and in part by the GovCon Incubator.
Got
So it's basically a program that has a small fee, though, as something that is a requirement to participate.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I just put the seed fund link in the chat. And this is the SBA has branded the SBIR STTR program as America's Seed Fund because it really is seed funding for your company. And as I mentioned, NSF is up to $305,000 this year. That's new as of June. Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today, and we look forward to receiving your applications.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We could stop recording.